The internet is a weird place, right? Specifically YouTube. There has always been an air of superiority that exuded from mainstream media when it comes to welcoming YouTubers into the mainstream spotlight. It is true that some progress has been made recently, with Lily Singh getting her own talk show and David Dobrik hosting programs like the Kids' Choice Awards on Nick, being a major step for validation of the platform and the creators on it as an actual staple of the mainstream media. However, seeing as the internet is still a relatively brand new venue to find content on, the stigma is still so heavy that whenever someone brings up the profession of someone on the platform, they always use the word YouTube before it. YouTube rapper, YouTube comedian, YouTube musician, the list is extensive. Even someone like Logan Paul or PewDiePie, some of the biggest creators on the platform, are still under the stigma of being only YouTubers. That being said, there are some people who were able to break through the barrier and immerse themselves into the popular culture outside of their computer screen. Most specifically, Bo Burnham, with his many comedy specials and most recently, his directorial debut of 8th Grade, has seemed to officially advance him from YouTube celebrity to simply just celebrity. You heard that right. The man almost had to be nominated for an Academy Award to shake off the label of a YouTuber. To this day, I've been waiting for someone else to ascend to the mainstream from my favorite platform ever. And if I'm being honest, there is someone out there who I think may be doing that exact thing right as I speak. And his name is KSI. There's really not much backstory needed for this video. If you've been on YouTube for even a minuscule amount of time, you know the name. He's a British YouTuber who got his start through FIFA and has climbed up the ranks to become one of the most popular people on the site, boasting a massive 21.5 million subscribers and a speculated net worth of $20 million. Now, you've all seen the title, and I'm aware that that is a pretty bold claim to make. But honestly, I don't think it's even that controversial. So let's go through the reasons I feel this way. I think a good opener is to talk about the Sidemen, the YouTube collective that KSI helped co-found with Mini Minter, Zerka, Tobe and Bazinga. They are a group who makes weekly videos on a channel with over 8.4 million subscribers and a net worth as a channel of 6.8 million. I don't know about you, but that's kind of insane to me. While they may not be the first collective to ever be on YouTube, they are certainly the most popular by a long shot. And at the head of the massive brand that sells out new merch across the world every single day is none other than KSI. The group is specifically named Sidemen because of how prominent of a figure KSI is and how the rest of them are the smaller people surrounding him. And although this is more strictly a YouTube-based point and the video is about KSI pushing through to the mainstream, it is important to remember that the group actually had an entire special dedicated to them on Comedy Central. And even though nowadays people like Gus Johnson, Boys Support Boys, have their own comedy series on the channel's YouTube, YouTubers being on a mainstream television program was incredibly unprecedented back in 2014. And after the absolute flop that was the Fred venture with Nickelodeon, this is honestly one of the first successful ventures of YouTubers with a featured role in something. And as much as I like a lot of the Sidemen's personalities, it's an actual fact that none of their successes on the platform, aside from Harry, would have happened if it wasn't for KSI. The other thing that makes KSI the most important person on the internet is that while other people are only focusing on pushing one skill of theirs, he literally throws everything at the wall and tries every avenue possible. In the year of 2016, he had a starring role in a film called Laid in America that was actually distributed through Universal Studios, which means a YouTube-based creator was involved in a production from one of the biggest film empires ever. And from watching the film, I would say it's on the level of a really bad studio comedy, as the premise doesn't revolve around the internet, and it seemed like any normal stinker of a buddy comedy that I would go to see in theaters. There were even real actors in the film, like Bobby Lee, Melissa Villaseñor, Madison Eisman, and Angela Kinsey from The Office. Regardless of the fact that the movie is genuinely pretty abysmal and only got released as a direct-to-home video product, The fact that the thing exists in the first place is something that JJ and his counterpart Casper Lee should be commended for. Now, moving on to the meat and potatoes of this video, let's talk about boxing. In 2017, fellow UK creator Joe Weller won his first amateur match in a video he posted on his channel, and KSI stepped forward saying he would like to spar with Weller next. What happened then was a spiral into one of the biggest YouTuber events, Weller vs KSI, in early 2018. It had 1.6 million concurrent live viewers on YouTube, which is just insane, and became the most successful white-collar boxing match of all time. Subsequently, the KSI vs Logan Paul saga began soon after, with the former calling out the latter immediately after his victory against Weller. So just like that, the dominoes continued to fall into the biggest two-part event, and I would argue the history of all of YouTube ever. KSI vs Logan Paul and KSI vs Logan Paul 2. The first match broke some records, as the pay-per-view was bought 1.2 million times globally, with many people at the event citing it as peak YouTube, with an arena of 21,000 people watching. To put this into perspective of how absolutely ridiculous that is, the average attendance for an NBA game this year is 17,857. The second match, of course, upped the ante significantly, with the event being held at the Staples Center, where the Los Angeles Lakers play, and many a famous musician has played a sold-out show. And although the attendance was much lower, weighing in at about 12,000, the press for this event blew up more than ever before. It was so big that I looked on my feed one day and saw one of my favorite sports analysts, Max Kellerman, covering it on ESPN. Sky Sports, DAZN, and many more mainstream sports programs and publications were filled to the brim with coverage of the fight. Stephen Kim of ESPN even said in an article that the whole ordeal actually helped the boxing industry, as the event more than likely created new fans of the sport out of people who watched the two creators and very likely had no interest in boxing before the event. This has been confirmed by YouTube Boxing continuing on after these two storied fights, as Anisan Gibb and Jake Paul sold out an event in Miami on Super Bowl weekend in February of this year. So instead of YouTubers being viewed as leeches attempting to claw their way into relevancy in the Hollywood conglomerate, they were being viewed as actual contributors to what they were participating in. And I think that is a pretty huge step that needs to be acknowledged. Once again, with the help of Joe Weller, Jake Paul, and Logan Paul, KSI has finagled his way into the mainstream media and been welcomed with open arms by mostly everyone there. And finally, we come to the most recent development, and the one that I think is the most significant: music. Music is not a new subject to KSI, however, as he did release the banger known as Heskey Time 8 years ago. No, but in all seriousness, JJ started trying his hand at music in 2015 with the well-known internet meme Lamborghini. And then, over the years, he started releasing more and more music every year, including 3 EPs that saw a steady progression in his actual rapping ability. However, the real turning point for me came when he released the song Beerus, in which, for the first time ever, I listened to a song made by an actual YouTuber and thought, if I was listening to music, and this came up on my Spotify Shuffle, I would assume that this is an actual rapper with a whole distribution and production company behind him. Yet somehow it didn't do enough for me to actually get in my rotation, and even though I watched the Sidemen pretty consistently, his music didn't come up on my radar until the end of 2019, when the aforementioned boxing match was 2 days away, and KSI released the audio for a new song called Down Like That. Since the cover art really stuck out to me, I decided to give it a listen. I had two thoughts. First, who in God's name is the dude on the hook, and why is he so incredibly fire? And two, wow, this is like an actual decent song. If I heard this on the radio, especially with the really well done guest verses, I would not even be surprised. JJ then went on releasing a string of singles, where most of them were actually, again, pretty solid songs. Also, nobody has talked about the fact that KSI samples a part of one of the best films of all time, Under the Skin score on Poppin', which blew my mind when I first heard it. Anyways, all of those singles led up to his debut album, Dissimulation, released on May 22nd. And once again, KSI etched his name into the mainstream media. The album charted number 2 in the UK and charted in the United States, despite his main demographic not even being from there. More importantly, though, was the critical reception that the album received, as Kitty Empire, a very popular publication, The Guardian, stated that he was able to make a genuine rap album, as opposed to a YouTube album. This sentiment was shared by many people, such as writers for Inlander, NME, and Anthony Fantano of The Needle Drop. Is that saying that the record is great? No, but that's not the point. The point is that KSI is once again managing to impress mainstream critics who have an inherent bias against creators who originate from the internet. And that is a huge step in the right direction for the validation of YouTube as a place where talented people can flex their stuff in any art form. So, what was the point of making this video? Well, even though KSI isn't necessarily my favorite creator on the platform, I think he deserves much more recognition than he is receiving. He is, almost single-handedly, paving the way for creators from the current generation of YouTube in the future to avoid being ridiculed because of where they come from. As someone who wants to make music and movies, and it seems that my start will be from this very YouTube channel, I just wanted to say thank you, JJ. Thank you for everything. Alright guys, that's the end of the video. Thank you for watching. Like, subscribe, and comment if you feel like it. If you don't, it's okay. Links to the Twitter and Patreon are in the description. I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your week, and goodbye.